the freedom that I felt as a wedding photographer, that was something very different, because there was, even though there was a brief, but there was no brief. You know what I mean? Like, wedding photography did not stop either, because people wanted those moments to be preserved, to be kept safe for them to view years later. It's talent and talent all the way.
Right.
Like,
right.
A photographer who doesn't have the equipment can still do a great job if they know their composition, they know their lighting, they know what story they want to tell.
So you think that to succeed in this business, you require as much as talent and also as much as business acumen as well, because all of those things need to align as a package. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Expert Talk with Bhavya Desai. Today I'm in conversation with Ankita Asthana, who along with her husband Akash runs this very well-known wedding photography company, which is Wedding Nama. Today's conversation is very interesting, because we've not spoken about the conventional wedding photography as such and as a genre and as an industry. We've actually spoken so much more about the perception of how wedding photographers are viewed, also about how things are, especially when you're shooting at more of a ground level and things like that, whether contracts are important or not, what are the things that you really need to demand when it comes to your own genre as an individual, as a wedding photographer. So it's very different from what you might be used to seeing about wedding photography, because I thought this was a very important topic that was needed to be brought forward, especially with a lot of the conversations and articles that I've read in recent times. So I hope you enjoy this one. Please leave a comment down if you have any questions. We'd love to answer it. Do follow us and of course subscribe to us as well, and see you in the next one. Hi Ankita, and welcome to Expert Talk with Bhavya Desai. Really excited to have you here because, as you know, photography has been something that we've been doing for such a long time. So whenever there's any conversation about photography, there's a different level of excitement, not just in me, but of course everybody here as well, because it's always great to meet people and have great conversations. So once again, welcome. If you'd like to say something, then.
Hi Bhavya, so great to be here. Thank you for thinking of me. And photography related anything, any questions, more than welcome, because today morning I was actually excited to come here and talk about photography.
Right. Great. So, there are so many things that we have to talk about. But the thing is that I didn't just want to talk about wedding photography as just an industry or a genre.
Okay.
Because I'm sure that you've done that quite a bit. And I know that, a few years back, we've done these Instagram live sessions, which was really great. I actually, in the last couple of years, there are so many things that I've actually been thinking about the industry. And I wanted to talk a little bit on the higher levels about those things as well. Because I think it's important that, especially photographers who are popular like you, when we get to hear those stories, those interesting conversations, anecdotes from people like you, I think it just puts a lot of things into perspective. So having said that, the first one, we start slow.
Okay.
COVID hit us, of course, during whatever 2020, 18-20, whatever. And after that, the industry has really bounced back, hasn't it? How has it been? Do you see it in full force now, especially in the genre?
See, COVID was a tough time for everybody. I don't want to go back there and talk about
Absolutely.
it. Let's talk about post-COVID.
Exactly.
So post-COVID is when weddings came back bigger, and how. You cannot even imagine the scale of weddings that started happening post-COVID. So 2020 itself, because people could not wait to get married to each other, because they had that, end of the world, doomsday type of feeling. And then they were like, no, I need to share this with somebody.
Right.
I cannot be alone through this. And that is when we saw a lot of, intimate weddings happening. And so weddings did not stop. There was no way of stopping weddings. And the same thing happened with photography. Wedding photography did not stop either, because people wanted those moments to be preserved, to be kept safe for them to view years later. And in 2021, the industry bounced back so big. There were 700, 800 people weddings normal.
Right.
That was the normal scale of weddings that started happening.
Right.
Because people had waited so long for the big fat Indian wedding, for the grand Indian wedding that they had been dreaming of. So there were some couples who So there were two kind of people that we, interacted with during that period, because one set of people were like, let's just get married. I don't care how big the wedding is. I can just get married at home with you and with my immediate family, and that's it. Let's just get done with it. And then there were those people who actually waited 2-3 years for things to start opening up, borders to start opening up, because they were like, I'm not getting married till I can celebrate with my friends and family.
Right.
And today's day and age, everybody lives all around the globe.
Yes.
So they needed the borders to be open. They needed a lot of, their friends to come together for their wedding, and they did not want to celebrate without that.
Right.
So they actually kept waiting, and we've had people who were supposed to be getting married that year in March, May, June, all of those off-season weddings that we usually do, which are usually destination weddings.
Yes.
For example, there was this couple who's an Australian couple. They wanted to get married in Vietnam, and they had got us from India. They had got all their vendors from different places, and they just waited. But even though Vietnam borders didn't open up, Thailand did, and then they ended up getting married there 2 years later. So she was a bride to be for 2 years.
Right. So it's very interesting. So destination weddings is something that I definitely want to talk about, because I think that's a very important part of the industry. But before that, you said, of course, everybody was really waiting for this time, like a couple of years. They really wanted to go all out to the big fat Indian wedding. But from a photographer's point of view, what is the level of emotions that you as a photographer has to invest, and be more of as a friend than look at it as an assignment? Because I think that is the critical factor which actually gives you the sort of emotion in the pictures as well, which you really are looking for.
I think you've actually hit the crux of the situation here, because it's actually very true, especially in our case. Like me and Akash, both of us, we run this company called Wedding Nama, but it's not a company or a business. We never treated it like that, because it's so personal for us. It is our first baby. It is something that we started even before we got married. So it's something that we've invested so much of our heart and soul into it. And you're very right when you say that at the end of the day, you're a friend too. So this bride, she used to call up Akash and she used to talk for hours, like just planning the wedding, and she's just, pouring her heart out to do that. I'm not able to do this. Let's do this. And then that's how we just remained on board, because it was easy for her. She could have gotten married anywhere. She could have gotten any vendor locally. She could have done that. But that relationship that you build with your couple, with your bride, with your groom, that is what, end of the day, that is what matters, and that is what we value the most. So it is all about that emotional factor, and very truly said, because when you feel the same emotion that you are photographing, that is when your photographs will actually speak. That is when the value of those photographs become a lot more, because you're not just treating it as a job or a task that you're doing because you're getting paid for it. It's nothing to do with that.
Right. But do you think that's very prevalent with couples which are more in India than possibly like internationally? Because maybe it's possible, but because we are naturally, Indians are a lot warmer, they're a lot more friendlier, especially during weddings, right? Because they really want to involve everybody, have like a huge family. Do you see that difference, or it's pretty much universal?
See, Indians are different when it comes to weddings, for sure. But even when we photograph people who are not Indians, but one of the partners is Indian, for example, and then they get even more invested into the photography, especially because they understand the value of it.
Right.
So we've had these people who are like, a lot of our clients are like maybe from US, Americans or Canadians, or from different places, Europeans. And then even I feel like they really value it as well. So the family values, those bonds are still strong even outside of it.
It's very interesting what you say, in terms of the value, because in fact, that's one of the things that I really want to talk about. And I don't know, and the context that I'll give you is because in the last year or so, I've actually spoken to a number of people from the wedding genre. And just personal talks. Wherein they feel that wedding photographers as a genre is looked down upon as compared to the other genres in India. Do you think like that?
I don't think like that, but I may have faced that kind of conversation or talk when it comes to photography. It's not the case anymore now. Back when I started 10, 12 years back, it was still the case because not many people into wedding photography were, the contemporary, what do you call it? They were not really, they were those traditional photo studios which used to do the job of wedding photography, which was more like a photo studio kind of a thing. They used to do a fantastic job. Let me tell you, I love the work that they used to do. But having said that, it was ultimately more about the transactional thing that was there. It was more about that because for them it was about, okay, one photographer will charge you this much, will give you these many photos. It was a little more transactional when it came to that.
Right.
But when a lot of different people from youngsters from India, they started, even after studying. Like for example, I have done my masters in photography. My husband is a MBA from XLRI. Like when people from these kind of roles started picking up photography as a career, that is when I think the whole the what do you call it, the words associated with wedding photography or the way
the perception
perception of it changed a little
Right.
more when people realized the true value of it, I would
Right.
say.
Right.
And also in terms of the money aspect, if you think of it from that perspective, earlier it was not that expensive. Wedding photography was not one of the most expensive things that you would, you wouldn't even account a lot of money for that. But today it is, in today's day and age, that value has also changed a lot.
Right.
The amount of money invested into photography. So if you look at the whole wedding budget as a whole, like a big chunk of it goes to photography now. Earlier it was all about the location and the decor and the clothes you're wearing, but not so much into photography.
Right.
The percentage was not that much.
But do you think that the percentage of people like you in this genre is still very less? I mean, here's where I'm coming from. So say for example, and I'm just bouncing off like thoughts. I think about 50 to 60% of the industry still today is wedding photographers. And of course, in that, I feel that percentage of the photographers who are really popular, like you, must be like 5%, maybe 7% or 10%, and I think 10% is a very big number, and 50 to 60% of that is still those studios today who are probably like catering to tier 2, tier 3 cities and things like that. So do you think that still they must be facing those sort of challenges even today?
I think they still do, because I have traveled and I've done workshops in a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities, and I still get that from them, that we have to fight for our basic rights, like the food that we are served at the wedding, the basic stuff like that shouldn't even come up as an issue, because you are feeding so many guests at your wedding, so why not the people who are actually capturing those memories for you? That happens, and then we hear all these stories. They face a lot of difficulties even with the working hours. It's not easy. They especially in these cities, they have weddings, midnight weddings that'll keep going on till the morning, and the photographers don't really get a break and things like that. But having said that, things are changing, which is what we want. So people are getting educated, and ultimately it's all a matter of fact that you need to educate the client. End of the day, that this is we shouldn't come up as a basic requirement, but you need to educate the client that this is what we want, this is what we need to have in order to give you these photos. For example, if it's a midnight wedding, have at least 2 photographers. The same person doesn't shoot for 18-20 hours. Have 2 people shooting 10 hours
so
each.
Budget has to increase.
The budgets have to increase.
Right. It's very interesting you say, because that's exactly what I was actually getting at, in terms of like the basic rights. Because I'm sure you also must be knowing this, but recently there were some reports where photographers, I'm sure that they've happened periodically, but where some photographers were denied food at weddings. Now, this is like basic human right and courtesy that you need to have.
It makes me so angry to just think about people facing these kind of situations. It shouldn't be on the table. It should not be.
Yeah. But does this happen even in like the bigger, fatter weddings as well? Because usually then the teams would be a lot bigger.
See, from our side, whatever we've done always is to take care of the team as much as we can. So these are all prerequisites. That is where the communication and the friendship with the client, that is where it comes into the picture. For us, it doesn't really happen that they'll ever create an issue, because they understand that the photographers need to be close to them most of the time when the things are happening, and most of the events are happening during lunch and time and dinner time, and that is the main time that it happens. So the photographer cannot really take a break, go somewhere else, eat and come back.
Right.
So no, these are all prerequisites. It doesn't need to be said verbally most of the time, thankfully, but still, like, we ensure that it's there in our contract, it is there in our agreement, so that there is no confusion. And especially with the planners nowadays, they are really taking care, because they know what we want, and they kind of, we work together very well.
Right.
So that's a very good thing, because that is where the couples also get educated, because planners spend a lot more time with them ultimately before the wedding.
Right.
And that is when all those decisions are being taken, number of plates, number of, those small things.
Right.
So they do take care of it.
Yeah. It's very interesting you spoke about contracts, so I actually wanted to speak a little bit about that as well, because there was certain set of questions or certain thought processes that I had about, celebrity weddings, because those are, I think, a different, I would say a different protocol, or the way you probably execute it as compared to maybe like a general wedding. But contracts in general wedding also happen, because I think if we are in our country, it's more about word of mouth, like trust factor, the handshake.
From day one, we've had contracts.
Yeah.
This is like 11th year of wedding now, my 12th year of me shooting weddings.
Okay.
But yeah, we've had contracts from day one.
You've never heard a pushback in terms of that from the client saying, okay, yeah, you know what, come on, we have this anyways, you know us, like.
No, they are happy, because they are also covered in the contract, right? There are things from both the sides of the party, so it's good for them, good for us, and it's always good to have that clarity. We shouldn't have to fight for things last minute, or suddenly they don't like surprises either. Nobody likes surprises. So as long as we're all like, we have that clarity on paper, it's the best thing. So that is something I would encourage all the photographers. If you don't have a contract yet, please do, because it really safeguards you, and it safeguards the client as well. So it works both ways, actually.
Okay, interesting, because Gen Zs, like you said earlier, that as the perception is changing. Actually, before that, you mentioned that, of course, you have done your master's in photography, of course, and so has Ankit.
Akash.
Sorry, Akash, my bad. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
So, because of that, there's a different level of business acumen which naturally comes in, and that automatically changes the way you project yourself as a brand, as a company, as a team, and things like that. So you think that to succeed in this business, you require as much as talent and also as much as business acumen as well, because all of those things need to align as a package.
Well, yeah, they do actually need to align as a package. Having said that, we don't really, like, it is very important to have the basics right, but you can learn. It's not necessary that you need to have that kind of education. You don't need to have an MBA to do photography, end of the day.
Right.
It doesn't have any starting barriers. There's no barrier to enter photography, but you can always do internships. You can always have a mentor, somebody to guide you. So then you get to learn all these things on the field.
Okay.
I feel on-field education is extremely, crucial to have, and that is something that will really give you good training, because I did my master's in photography, but I didn't really learn wedding photography at all. Like, it wasn't even there. I had no idea that something like this exists, something I can pursue, but it happened. So you learn on the field.
Right. What was your interest when you did your master's? When you did your master in photography, what did you originally envision you wanted to do?
I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, I think, but I knew that I wanted to speak through my photographs.
Okay.
I wanted to communicate through my photographs, because that is something I was able to do. I was able to communicate with a larger audience. There were people all over the world. I had friends in Germany, in Brazil, because of my photography, because at that time there was Flickr and stuff.
Right.
We used to post, and then they used to comment back, and then we used to have a conversation over it. So I enjoyed the fact that I was able to connect with people. So that is something that got me into photography. I wanted to speak through the photographs. And earlier I did a lot of different things. I've done fashion, I've done advertising, I've done, since I'm an architect turned photographer, I've done architectural photography, industrial, a lot of different things. Ads also. I still do ads apart from weddings.
Right.
But yeah, there was a lot of different things. The freedom that I felt as a wedding photographer, that was something very different, because there was, even though there was a brief, but there was no brief. You know what I mean? There was nobody, no creative head sitting on top of me and then telling me that this is something that we need to achieve. I had all the freedom in the world to go there, to observe, to capture things as naturally as I can, to create something very different and very unique at every wedding. So that is something that I really enjoyed, that freedom to create.
But how much of the level of, how much of level of experimentation can you do at weddings?
A lot.
A lot?
A lot.
Okay.
It's a whole blank canvas, and every time I go for a wedding, my brain keeps working, because I have so many new techniques I want to try out, so many different type of lenses I want to shoot with, or different type of images that I want to create. And at the same time, it has to blend in with that documentary style, which is the major thing that I'm doing, because I am documenting somebody's wedding in the truest form. But at the same time, you get a lot of scope for experimentation. Yeah.
So is there like a format where you know that, okay, these are the things that you basically want, and these are the things that I need to first get, and then I'm going to leave out like this amount of time where I'll go like...
No, it has to be throughout. It has to be like everything has to happen, and it is a lot of spontaneity that you need to be able to do this. Because for me, a lot of photographers work like this. They work like, okay, I have created something for my client. Now I'm going to create something for myself. I don't work like that. I always try to blend in the two. Something that is good for my client has to be portfolio for me as well. So I like to work like that.
Okay. But, and I mean, especially, and because it's a wedding, then obviously the couple will always give you that much amount of time as well, because it's the most important day of their life, right?
Time is a fight that it is a continuous fight, because they have to give time to a lot of things. But yes, we've been lucky that way. I think people for whom photography is very important have chosen us, and we like to work with them as well, because then you get the time that you need to create all those crazy photographs.
Okay. You know, Gen Z, like you mentioned earlier, that in terms of perception, and that actually makes me think about some things. Is the perception or the approach of how a newer generation couple takes, like, as you said, you started about 12 years odd back. Do you see a lot of difference with the clients, what were back then to what the clients are today? In terms of everything, approach, style, thought process?
I think the approach evolves, the type of photography evolves, but at the base of it all, the truest form of photography that we do is documentary photography, and that remains the same through it all. So capturing those real moments, capturing those natural moments, that part remains the same. Maybe the aesthetics of it change a little bit. Maybe the way it's being showcased online changes a little bit. But I feel, and even the kind of work has changed. If you see people's Instagram pages, for example, today, I just feel like everybody's page looks exactly the same. And I feel like I really want to do something different. I don't want to follow a set trend or a format. Everybody's filters have become the same. The color tones have become the same. So for me, I've always fought really hard against that. I've always tried to have a very unique perspective, and same with my team. I've just tried to have that same vision for them, and they also have the same kind of vision. They just try to create something different for each couple, because ultimately that has to be unique. It is all about the people in the wedding. So that has to be unique. We have to capture the essence of it. We cannot force a style just because it is trending on a couple. For example, if there is a couple who loves to smile and laugh, I'm not going to tell them, okay, have a straight face, you look here, you look there, and let me take this photo because right now this is the trend on Instagram. I'm not going to do that. So I want to capture their feeling, their emotions, their happiness of getting married. And at the same time, if there is a couple who wants those fashion editorial style photos, I'm really happy to do those for them. But it has to be customized and personalized for each couple. It cannot be something that you've seen. You're doing something just because you've seen it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because actually in these things there are 2-3 things that you spoke about which actually makes me think about so many things. For example, like you mentioned about styles, filters, so I want to talk a little bit about that in terms of AI and post-processing, because I think that's a very interesting topic to talk on. But before that, you also said that, of course, no two people are same, neither are two couples. Sometimes you meet like extrovert couples and sometimes you meet like someone who's like super shy. How do you, as a photographer or in terms of conversation, really ease them out? Because only if they're relaxed, they're going to give you like the best level of emotions that...
Absolutely. It all comes through conversation, through all of the research that you've done before. You have to sit with them, you have to do phone calls with them, you have to invite them over to your office or wherever you go out for a coffee with them. So you just become friends even before the wedding happens. And that is most important, because end of the day, they shouldn't look at you as a camera person behind the camera. They have to see you as a face who is happy to listen to you.
Right.
So then they ease into it. So we've made people take photographs, even if they have been like super shy people or who would never have taken a photo in their life. We've made sure, and at the end of the day, they always come back and say that, I'm glad, that we got some pictures, we got these photographs taken, because otherwise we wouldn't have these.
Right.
So it's always that relationship and that bonding that you build with the couple.
Today's day and age, you mentioned about Instagram, right? Now, more and more, as I see people talking these days, it's less about websites and only social media. Do you think websites, as a photographer or as someone, is prerequisite or relevant today?
It should be. It still is. For us, the most posting we do is on our website. We hardly ever post on Instagram. We try to be regular, but it never really happens, because at the end of the day, it's a social media thing. You have to be on social media to post on social media.
Right.
So yeah, the website has to be the most updated thing for any photographer today, because the serious people, the people who you actually want to photograph will definitely go through your website, will read about you, who you are, what you've done, what has your journey been. They want to know that. So couples nowadays, they love to read. They love going through the website. So in fact, most of our inquiries come through the website.
Oh, is it? Okay, because I personally feel like just about until about a couple of years back, when we would also invite someone to be part of interviews in the magazine, the first thing I would always tell the team, I was like, okay, do they have a website? If they don't have a website, then don't even recommend. Let's move to the next person. But I feel in today's day and age, everything is like so instantly and quickly available where you want to check on Insta or social media, that I'm not sure if they're still doing that. I don't know, but you feel otherwise.
People who are getting married are still doing that.
Yeah.
In general, maybe it's just become simpler because it's what you do every day. Like you were going on Instagram and you're checking out your feed and you see somebody, you think of them. But yeah, people still do their research on website.
Let's talk about celebrity weddings. Okay. How is the protocol different as compared to what you do in a regular wedding?
The thing is, let me put it this way. So we don't do a lot of celebrity weddings. At the same time, we do celebrity weddings, but we don't treat them any differently.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they need a different protocol, then we may not be part of it. Because for us, we have to be given that freedom, and we have to be given that creative freedom and that space to shoot. If there are more than 3-4 teams handling a wedding, that is our first step out. We don't do a wedding like that. Then if there are things to be signed and stuff which we are not comfortable with, we don't want to sign those things. We understand privacy, we understand the value of it. Of course, we're happy to sign that. But sometimes things are being asked for which we are not comfortable with. Right. So we don't want to work in that space.
Okay.
But yeah, in today's world, celebrities have all the influence and a lot of end of the day that's the truth of the matter. So it's fine. I mean, we've done a few weddings where for them, again, the photography has been very important. So those are the weddings that we like to do.
Right. But if, for the benefit of the viewers, if you just give them an idea, what's the difference between like the general protocols, like how you'd approach, like for example, there are no phones probably allowed, there is no, you cannot
I'm
post
happy with
anything.
no phones allowed. I'm really happy with that. So that's not a problem for me. In fact, I recommend to a lot of my couples to don't have any phones around.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, we've done weddings where we've managed entire mobile-free weddings, DSLR-free weddings, because there was one wedding we were capturing in Mexico and there was suddenly a lot of people with DSLRs out there and we're like, okay, dude, we cannot do this. Next day, morning, all DSLRs gone, all phones gone. Same thing in Mussoorie, we were capturing a wedding, beautiful, gorgeous wedding. We told them beforehand, if you want those larger than life, like wider shots of everybody involved, don't have phones around. So they didn't have any phones. They had given the guests bells and flowers to throw, and the guests who were watching were actually involved in the wedding. So you end up getting a lot more beautiful frames out of it, instead of everybody capturing a photo which nobody's ever going to look at.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is that annoying as a photographer when people pull out their phones and start whatever, clicking things and...
Yeah, it is.
So, photography is, but you mentioned earlier that you actually have had weddings wherein people have been told that, listen, please stay away from your phones and all the other things. But is that difficult to execute? Because today's day and age, every guest is coming in, obviously they want their own personal memories as well, with friends, with couple, and is it difficult?
It's very difficult to execute. You have to have your couples have to have that hold over the wedding. That's the first thing. That's very important. Second, your planners need to be your friends, because they are the ones who can actually get you to execute something like this. But yeah, in some weddings, we just have to let go, because when you realize the crowd is not such who will actually listen to you, you just have to let go, and then you find your frames through it all, which you still do, but which is a different challenge of its own.
Right.
But it's fun to capture that way. Wedding also.
Wedding planners, you said that, friends, if the wedding planners are your friends and they help you, because obviously they have like a team which can really do this. How important are today wedding planners today in weddings, and especially working with that team cohesively?
They are very important. They play a very key role to the wedding running smoothly, because they handle everything from start to end. They handle the guest movement, they handle the decor being a certain way, they handle the lighting. So they definitely are crucial to everything running smoothly.
But and what is the level of help that you require from them to execute, do your work successfully in order for them, in order to have like a great wedding or a beautiful output?
We will do a good job irrespective whether we are getting the raw material or not.
Right.
The raw material is different in each case. If we get a certain type of raw material, the output will be certain way. But even when you don't have that basics sorted, we have developed that kind of ideology to always be prepared for everything and anything that you might face. For example, I spoke about lighting. If the certain wedding is not lit very well, we have our own lights which we have to then add and then get those shots, irrespective whether it's been given to us or not. So it is crucial, but it's not the end of the day. You can manage with or without the help of that you can get from them. But yes, it's really nice always to have support. It's more fun to work that way, where everything is in its place and it's sorted.
What is the level of equipment prep that is required when it comes to wedding? Is there like a lot of recce which is done beforehand, and then if you can take us through that process?
So we do a lot of pre-planning before each shoot that we go for. If we can physically do a recce, if it's a new location, we definitely do that, so that we go at the time of the wedding. For example, if it's a 4 p.m. sunset wedding, we go at 4 p.m. and check it out. What is the direction of the lighting? What kind of preparation we need to do for that? And so that we can also recommend to the decorators or the planners that, guys, if this can be covered or this can be left open, or if the direction of the mandap can be a certain way. We've gone into that kind of depth and detail. We've even had we've also managed to change the timing of the wedding if needed. If it was planned at a certain hour and we wanted it maybe an hour before or slightly before that. We get into that kind of detail in terms of the execution of the wedding, and also the equipment a lot of research goes into it. Because we have to travel most of the time, and whenever we are traveling, we are restricted to carry certain weight limits and stuff like that, which keeps on getting tougher and tougher with the airlines nowadays. But we want to carry the best of the best equipment. We want to ensure that every kind of magnification of lenses is there. We've done extreme things also sometimes, like that Mexico shoot that I mentioned. We actually went to New York before Mexico so that we could get a casing for our Z7 at that time that we were using in underwater casing. So that we could go to the cenotes and actually capture underwater shots there on our mirrorless at that time. So those kind of things. Then the drones that we have to carry, we have to have the latest ones, the latest technology. We like to have that so that things go really nice and smooth.
What is the divide in terms of talent and equipment? It's always the biggest question that a lot of people always ask. That is a photographer as good as his equipment or her equipment?
It's talent and talent all the way.
Right.
Like a photographer who doesn't have the equipment can still do a great job if they know their composition, they know their lighting, they know what story they want to tell. They can tell a very good story. I tell the photographers nowadays who contact me saying, I don't have money for a DSLR. I said, you don't need a DSLR or a mirrorless or whatever. You can shoot either on your phone or you borrow a camera from a friend of yours. You shoot. First make the portfolio. First become a photographer, then buy the equipment. So to become a photographer, you don't need a camera. All you need is your eye.
Right.
Your vision. That's all you need.
But do you think that sometimes doesn't always translate onto what you want to do in terms of like the vision as well? I mean, of course, because actually now you've been in the business for a long time, then it comes a lot easier to you as compared to someone who's possibly starting out, because they are a little underconfident. They are probably still trying to find their feet at the first few shoots and things like that. Any advice for them? What do you think that how should they approach these sort of things?
Never let equipment limit you. Even with the basic of the basic equipment, you can create a lot of work. More than the cameras and the lenses, I think work on your lighting, because that can make a lot of difference in the work that you do. Even with a simple basic lens, even with a f4, f5.6 lens, you can get a really good shot if you know how to light up the situation. So work on that first before investing in a certain gear. Don't just run after the 1.2 lenses just because you've seen some photographer use it. 1.8 lenses are also very, very good. So I'm just saying, you will have to figure out the budget that you can spend on equipment right now. Spend a little more on the lighting and the lenses. The camera can come a little later.
Right.
Because the camera is upgradable. Your lenses should last you for a long time.
Yes.
So work that way, and you always can take the help of rental houses which are there before even purchasing the equipment. Go to the rental house, figure out if you want to use this XYZ lens and XYZ camera, take it out for a spin first, test it out. After that, purchase it. Don't go directly and buy a camera.
What are the 3 best lenses that you would recommend for wedding photography? What would be your top 3 choices?
Personally, what I use will be very different. What I would recommend would be very different, because I am a lens, like a lens freak or a maniac, or I don't know, like I love the glass, and I've kind of used all kind of equipment that you can think of, all kind of lenses that you can think of. I've used it because that's again something that I love to experiment with. Having said that, for weddings, I think the key lenses would be like a 24-70 2.8. Don't go anywhere without that lens. I personally don't use it anymore, but that is a really good lens to have, because a lot of the times you cannot move around. So I love shooting on primes personally. So I usually get the space to move around if I'm shooting on a 35-85 or a 50-24 or that kind of a combination is what I use. So you can move around and you can get your shots. But a lot of the time that's not the freedom that you're going to get. So if you have to be in a one place and capture that Varmal moment, you have to, and you're the only photographer there. So if you have a 24-70, imagine the variety of shots that you can get with just that one lens.
Right.
Then a 70-200 is also really, really good lens to have. So these 2 lenses are really good lenses for wedding photographers. But most of the time we're shooting with low light, and if we don't have that capability or the capacity to put a light of our own and then capture the moment, then you might need a prime lens here and there. So like a 35 1.8 and a 85 1.8.
Okay, so these are the three lenses that you definitely recommend.
Yeah.
Okay, from the perspective of AI, you spoke a little bit about this earlier, and it's very interesting because I think moving forward, a lot of it is going to be about that. I'm not really sure if the genre, but do you see a lot of that being used today, especially in your genre?
Definitely, wedding photographers are using a lot of AI in their businesses. A lot of people are using culling softwares, which are slowly becoming good. A lot of people are using AI for editing. And in general, our softwares, our cameras have AI, our softwares have AI. So knowingly or unknowingly, I'm sure every photographer today is using AI. So as long as you're not, afraid of it, as long as you're not threatened by it, use it as a tool is what I would recommend to all the photographers. Use AI as a tool. It's a good tool to have. You can speeden up your post-processing. You can do a lot more things with your time that you save. So, of course, I would recommend AI to every photographer.
Yeah. How much of work is basically, how important is post-processing in the business as compared to, in terms of the divide? Like, you shoot something and then I've seen, like, of course, I'm sure everybody's seen that, but for them, how much of the change does that really happen in the post-processing?
So I like my photographs straight out of the camera. They're ready to go to the client.
Right.
But having said that, as a team, when you're shooting together, you need a lot of post-processing because you have to get everything together, view in good viewable format for the couple. You cannot send them like folders from a photographer 1, photographer 2, photographer 3, and everything has different edits,
Right.
So every folder has a different edit. You cannot do that. You have to bring it together. It has to have a cohesive language. All the photos have to tell a story together end of the day. So all that requires a lot of time, and when it comes to videos also, it is something that takes a lot of time to edit. So yes, post-processing is one of the most important things because you can change in terms of, especially in video, you can change how the story is being told. You can change the feeling that somebody gets after watching the video a lot. The music that you're choosing, the kind of edits that you've done, the shots that you've chosen. You can make the same film very, very emotional or the same film very, very different from that. So a lot of work goes into the post-production. That's one of the reasons that we always chose to do a limited number of weddings rather than do a lot of weddings, because shooting wise, we can shoot every day, but it's the edits that make a lot of difference at the end of the day. So, and we invested a lot of time in that.
Right. Videos, and you said that in terms of videos, especially edit, it takes obviously a lot of time. Yes. Are there like different teams usually that you have for people who are only concentrating on video and who's basically only doing stills, or it's a little bit of amalgamation of both?
So we have different teams. There are video editors who are only editing videos. There are photo editors who are only editing photos.
No, I mean in terms of shooting.
In terms of shooting also, there are photographers whose role is only that, and there are cinematographers whose role is only videos, because otherwise there's always going to be a confusion. If one person is switching between photo and video, there is a chance of missing that shot. And we do not want to take any kind of chance like that. We cannot leave it to chance. If the same person is switching between photo and video, then that can happen, because you cannot be assured that, okay, this person is taking a photo, maybe this person is taking a close-up shot, so I can take a wide shot, and this person is taking a close-up video. So that kind of role division has to happen in the team. And but having said that, if there is a moment that a photographer has seen, and if he sees that there's no person capturing a video, he's more than equipped to switch to video and capture that moment in video as well.
Right.
So that kind of support is there, but the photographer is essentially a photographer and a cinematographer is essentially a cinematographer.
In terms of taking a lot of pictures as well, is there a difference? Because I mean, these days it's all about the vertical photos, as we see in social media. Are there like specific requests that come from clients that, okay, look, we want like this in vertical, and
There are.
yeah?
There are requests, especially there are a lot of people who are influencers or who that is their main means of, they have to post, their audience is waiting for it. They have to post the content vertical. So, in fact, there was a wedding that we did for an influencer, which we captured all the videos vertically.
Wow.
Everything straight, start to end. Then there were other events like, for example, if there's an engagement going on, there will be somebody capturing it vertical because that is the end product that they are looking for. They want a vertical reel.
Right.
So one person will shoot vertical and get that. And so that kind of requests do come nowadays because people are seeing things vertically on their phone. So a lot of that kind of request comes in. Having said that, I love the larger than life. I love the screening room. I love the theater. I love that horizontal format of things.
Yeah, but the reason I ask is because, I was actually discussing this with my team as well, I think a little while back, and something happened, and then we were doing something in terms of a shoot, and I wanted to illustrate a point, and I actually went back 1 year in my timeline on my phone just to see, okay, what are the shots that I have. And I realized that almost 8 to 9 months back as well, I'm not shooting a lot of horizontal. Most of it is like on vertical, which was like kind of a shocker to me as well. Which was extremely surprising. But then yes, with a wedding, I think people would still possibly like look at having like.
People still rent out like whole theaters and they watch the wedding film as if it was a Bollywood movie. So that horizontal format is there to stay in weddings.
Creatively, what has been the most satisfying shoot that you've done when it comes to wedding? You can't like go here and there. You have to like maybe pick one or just maybe one more, say two. Oof. And why, of course.
Oof. That is a tough question because I love I can't even pick one. How do I pick one? Creatively, how satisfying has it been?
Like something where you actually thought of something and envisioned it, and it actually turned out like that, or maybe even more. It's just so beautiful, and you felt
a lot of shoots do end up converting into something that you visualized it as. But I can think of this Masuri wedding that I was talking about, where we ensured that there are no phones around, and we managed to get the whole backdrop of the Himalayas, and we managed to get different angles of things, and we had planned a few shots. Say we'll go to a particular room from where we get that exact center, that particular view, and even in other events of theirs, we managed to get like the entire family involved because there were like 150 people who were all very close to the couple. So any idea that you had was easy to execute because they were ready to listen, and we ended up creating those kind of pictures for them. So that is one of the shoots that I can think of. But almost every shoot, end of the day, you feel very, very happy because you've managed to get what you want. And yet at the next shoot, I feel like those butterflies because I'm excited to know what I'm about to get. So.
But what drives that? Because at some point of time, of course, over a period of like 10, 12 years, you will be like, okay, you know what? I mean, now I think I should.
So far, it hasn't happened to me. Thankfully, I'm actually grateful for that because I still feel that same excitement that I felt for the first wedding that I went to. I think one thing is limiting the number of weddings that you do every year. That is very important. If you end up over-exerting yourself and overshooting and shooting every day of the season, then when you get up the next day, maybe you are tired, maybe you don't feel that same energy and enthusiasm. So one, I think, mistake or error a lot of photographers end up doing is to take things back to back, and then by the end of the season, they are like burnt out. So that burnt out thing has to be avoided as much as possible. Try to, take up alternate shoots, at least have a gap day, take rest, take care of those little things, your travel days. When are you traveling to what location? Are you traveling one day before? Are you well rested? Then you go to the shoot the next day. I think those physical limitations are what would affect a lot. If affect the excitement a lot, because then if you're tired and you don't have that energy and enthusiasm, automatically it's going to also affect your work.
Right.
So,
In terms of this travel only that you're mentioning, but do you have like that level of leeway as well from clients when you want to like come in? Because again, see, this is a pain point, right? It's a major pain point when it comes to like discussions with friends, couples, clients, and stuff like that. When they be like, okay, you know what? Obviously, you would want to get as much rest as possible, but sometimes they'll be like, okay, you know what? We are doing this, and we can only accommodate this much, and things like that. So you have to work your way around those things as well.
Yeah, those kind of discussions have to happen. You have to, ensure that, okay, maybe not they, because what happens is if the entire team is coming on day one of the wedding and you are starting to shoot at 12 noon or something like that, your hotel check-ins do not happen till 1 p.m.,
Right.
2 p.m. So you cannot expect a team to travel there and start shooting with their bags kept in the lobby, so those kind of things. So when you tell these things to the couples, they do understand, and they do understand the need for the team to reach one day before. So you have to again have a good conversation with them about it and tell them that if this happens, then automatically the next day you are well rested and you can actually do a session with them early morning, or even that day evening you can have take their interviews, do their photos. So something or the other that you can also do for them if you're coming one day early. So that kind of thing you can plan.
But usually, like our couples, like very open and relaxed to talk about a lot of these things. Sometimes, they might just want to sidestep all of
See,
these.
everybody has budget restraints. End of the day, no matter how much money you have, you will end up having a certain budget for your wedding, and you don't want to overdo that. So you can speak to them about it. There have been times when we have booked a room for the team one day before if the client has not been able to do that. So we've booked a room saying that, okay, no, you guys travel and you reach there, rest there. Next day morning you will get the rooms from the client. So those kind of things you have to do end of the day to take care of your team.
Right. In terms of like similar manner only, in terms of what you actually see internationally as well, and where you see what's happening when it comes to our genre, do you see still that there is a difference between the approach of how photographers are viewed there even today and how they're viewed here today? Because
I think Indian photographers are valued all over the world because they are really easy to work with. They understand, the long hours
points,
and all the things that come with a wedding, and they are happy to work through it rather than charge by the hour and say that, okay, I'm going to charge for my off time as well when I'm sleeping. I'm going to charge you for that time. But that was just on the funny note. But I think the photographers today have earned a lot of respect through their work, through the kind of commitment that they've shown, and people have realized the value of these photographs that we're creating for them, because like we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, like our wedding anniversary, and we spent the day like watching our wedding film with our like 1-year-old, but like really small, we would know, but we enjoyed that, and clients do that. It is a timeless thing that we're capturing for them. End of the day, so that perception has changed a lot, and it is a very respectable job. It is a very coveted thing as well in today's day and age. A lot of photographers aspire to be wedding photographers, which is what.
The reason I ask is because I think, the perception of how I think parents still look at children getting into the line, I think they still have a very different perception. I still get asked that a lot even today. That, okay, I want to get into photography, but my parents are not sure whether this is the right field to get into, and whether they'll be economically and commercially, will it be very viable over a long period of time, which tells me that something that in terms of perception, still that time has really not changed that much, especially for younger people. And if you compare that in terms of structure and the amount of respect that internationally like they command, and I won't just say photography in general as well, whatever you do it with respect, and people look at it that, okay, you are a specialist in that. So that's where I'm coming from. I mean, you don't see much of that, is it?
No, I have actually met a lot of photographers who at different workshops, and whenever I've traveled to different places, people do come up to me and they do ask, how do we get into this field? And so I've always had a very positive the response to this, or a very positive outlook when it comes to this. And there are people who aspire to be wedding photographers in today's day and age. It's something that is really being done. So.
Okay. Top 3 advices that you would like to give anyone who's upcoming photographer, wedding photographer today?
Okay. Be true to your work. It is the most important thing. Doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Actually, your work is the most important thing that matters. Second thing is don't take shortcuts. Everybody has their own timeline. They will reach there. You cannot miss this and skip a step and go there. Just start from the basics. Join a team, join a photographer, find a mentor, learn from the basics, because once you have your basics sorted is when you will be able to have that free hand at a wedding that you have got to shoot. Third thing is respect your clients also. A lot of times I find that wedding photographers are complaining about their clients. Just try to understand where they're coming from. Most of the time they're coming from a good place. They may have a lot of stress on their hand because of a lot of things that happen at weddings. So don't just fight, or don't just get into that zone. Respect your clients, and you'll get what you want. It sometimes can get tricky, sometimes can get difficult to get what you want, but try to educate, try to convince, and try to work with that. Work with what you have, and try to build, and at the same time have that self-respect and demand for certain things that are very, very basic. So you can demand for that, because you are that important. You are playing a very important role in their wedding.
Right. In terms of instant gratification, right? You mentioned about the newer people, obviously, as I asked about this thing. It's a time of instant gratification, right? For a lot of the younger generation. You said there are no shortcuts. And that's what I'm coming to. Is it difficult to manage younger people in terms of teams and things like that? Because everybody wants to get there faster. They want, and something tells me on the smile that.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of patience nowadays. Youngsters need to have a little bit more patience. They try to change their field ever so often, because they go to a place, 3 months nothing has happened, 4 months nothing has happened. They want to move on to the next thing. And again, don't follow trends, and don't follow things that just because somebody's become famous doing something doesn't mean you will as well. So you don't have to just follow that blindly and just do that just because, okay, this worked for this person, may not work for you. So I feel like photography itself is such a it's also a technical thing, right? It's also it's an emotional thing. It's also a technical thing. You have to have your basics right. You have to know how to capture a photograph, how to work around situations. You cannot. There's so much to learn in wedding photography, specifically photography also, but wedding photography specifically because there's no manual, there's no there's not a book that you can read and become a wedding photographer. You cannot do a course and become a wedding photographer. You have to spend time in the field. You may be faced with new challenges every day. So it's a difficult field to be in, challenging field to be in. Be in it only if you absolutely love doing it. Otherwise, you'll not enjoy it. So that's the first thing. Make up your mind. Ensure that this is something that you really want. Then chase it. Then chase the hell out of it.
Earlier you were talking about what you call seeing something which is in, like, you relived your wedding film and pictures at your 10th anniversary. In terms of prints, there's always this question about like the digital and prints. Now, over a period of time, I think in certain ways people have innovated to bring prints back into the wedding industry. Do clients still ask for a lot of albums and any innovative things like that, or it's more digital only now?
No, there are prints involved at every step of the way. People want to put up their wedding pictures on the wall. People want to put up like massive posters of them getting married at their wall, at their home. And people want to get coffee table books, like everybody does, because that is something they can watch with their friends and family whenever they come over. Something that will actually be on the coffee table. So something that they can see again and again. So people love prints.
But is it like traditional versus the newer generation, wherein like newer people are possibly looking at more digital, or when it comes to wedding, it's like almost 90% of the people are like, no, we want something.
See, when if there is somebody who moves around a lot, maybe they will not go for a coffee table book or prints because there's another thing to carry around with them. But everybody who builds a home wants to have their album in at home or wants to have their photographs on the wall.
So, because like when I got married, we never did an album, and I think it's because we wanted to be more like in terms of like the digital time, and that's the reason why I'm asking, because are there like more people out there like that, or is it as part of most people of what they are doing that they would not?
I think it's also as a photographer how you present your stuff to them.
Right.
So most of our meetings, we do show the coffee table books, and they do like their photos and prints. So they end up asking for it. End of the day, it's also about that. If you only send an online link, they'll be more than happy with an online link.
So, destination weddings is what we spoke about a little bit earlier. And I had a couple of questions on those. One is that, are people having a lot of destination weddings, or do they still prefer to be like in these cities that they've originated from?
People are having a lot of destination weddings. They love traveling for weddings. I think they love to celebrate it, and they love to go outside their city, because everybody else is anyways traveling. A lot of people are not in your city anymore, so they're anyways traveling. Either they travel to Mumbai or they go to some other destination. The same thing for the guests. So people enjoy destination weddings because you get a lot more flexibility in terms of the hotels, the kind of the weather also. A lot of the time it's not conducive in your hometown a lot of the time, so you travel for it. Sometimes people like to go to the beach side because that's what they've dreamt of, or sometimes they go to Rajasthan, or sometimes they go to the mountains and the hills. Like I just came from a family wedding which happened in Kashmir because the couple really wanted that snow mountains in the backdrop. So destination weddings always make people happy.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of difference in terms of what happens in a tier 1 city as compared to what a tier 2 and a tier 3 city would be? In terms of extravagance, because it's different for different people. The reason I ask this is because, from an exposure level point of view, I think a tier 1 city, you will have a lot of different type of clients. Like you said, the client who probably just want to do a court marriage and then do something else. But more of tier 2, tier 3 cities, they always like make it a lot more involved for everyone. Do you see that in terms of, in your experience, how do you view, are the tier 1 cities more concise, more smaller, and the 2 and 3 cities, things are more grander, or there's like a huge change that's happening in that?
I think it has a lot to do with space.
Okay.
Tier 2, tier 3 cities do have a lot of space. They have those big wedding destination grounds where you can set up like massive, like for example, I am not calling it a tier 2 city, but Surat, the kind of weddings that happen there. I mean, they construct castles, they construct like massive setups, like it would look like a film set. People were asking me, like we'd done this massive wedding in Surat a few years back, and people were asking me, which location is this? Dude, I want to get married here. I said, you will not be able to because they've constructed the whole castle. So, they do larger than life.
Yeah, I've been to something like that in Surat, 2,500 people. I mean, it was, I think it just seemed as if the whole town had come to to the wedding. It was, but I understand exactly what because the moment you said that, I started picturing that. So I know, okay. Yeah. But then in that, okay, another interesting thing, in your experience, which region do you think, I mean, like, wherein people do a lot more in terms of spending on their wedding? Like for example, I'm saying west, north, south, like that. It is different for different.
I think everybody does. I'm not so sure about the northeast part of it because I've not done like very, very big weddings there. But the North Indians, yes, Punjabis are famous for their big weddings. Even Gujaratis, even like the west side of it. If you look at Rajasthan, if you look at Gujarat, some very big weddings happen, and people do like to spend a lot of money on weddings. South India is slightly different. They do like to have their ceremonies are very intimate and very quick, but the celebration, like the reception, will happen with 6,000 people. So they do like to invite everyone. It's all a matter of how big a heart you have, how many people you want to feed,
Right.
how many people you want to invite, and you get the blessings from for the wedding. So it's I think it's an Indian thing. It's a very Indian thing that people like to have big weddings here.
Yeah. Where do you think the wedding industry is going to go in the next like 4 or 5 years? I mean, in every periodical, I think maybe 5 years or so, a lot of trends keep changing, right? We first had traditional weddings, then came the whole candid phase, then documentary candid sorts. Where do you think it's heading in the next 5 years?
See, I think in terms of photography, it's going to essentially remain the same in terms of the work that is required to do, but a lot of innovation has happened in the way things are captured, in the way, for example, if there are couple shoots, or if there are destination pre-wedding shoots, things like that, they keep happening. Those kind of trends keep happening, but essentially wedding photography is all about capturing those 3 days or 4 days of the fun that everybody's had, or the emotional moments that everybody's gone through, and to relive that so essentially for wedding photography is going to remain the same.
Okay.
Because people want to get back to, they want to relive their wedding through the photographs, through the film.
Yes.
So that cannot change.
But in terms of style,
that should not change.
In terms of style, of what is being shot, what is being done, do you think that something will change probably in that respect?
Those kind of changes keep happening, which are more superficial changes, is what I would say, because someday someone will come up with a new technique or a new idea that they have executed at a wedding. Somebody sees that, they like it, they want to do it at their own wedding. So things like that will keep changing, but those are the superficial things. Essentially, and to the core value of wedding photography is going to remain the same.
Right. It's pre-wedding, right? Is it usually these days a lot of prerequisite that people are shooting a lot of pre-wedding photographs as compared to before, or is there like a...
It's just the love for photography has increased a lot more, and people want to be captured because they are in the best form or best shape of their life at the wedding most of the time. They want to be captured, and those moments, because it's the new relationship, they want to capture those little moments of love between the two people. So they want to capture that and keep it forever. So a lot of the time during the wedding, you don't get the time for it. During the wedding, because you're in very heavy clothes and you're attending the ceremony and functions and the ceremonies yourself, you have to ensure you're meeting all the guests. So you don't have a lot of time to get these pictures. So that is why sometimes people like to do it beforehand.
Is there a lot of trend of doing the 1-year anniversary thing also? I don't know what it's called exactly.
People are doing a lot of different things. Post-wedding shoots are also not, they're still like, they are good and they're new and they're being done because people want to get captured. People love photos now.
Yeah, because primarily for this reason, the reason is because during the wedding, you again have to attend to so many guests. You have like so many functions and X, Y, Z. So you aren't probably in the most relaxed self. And because we were suggested that when I got married, I was suggested, instead of doing a pre-wedding, do a post, because then you'll be more relaxed, you'll be more whatever. And then they said that 1 year also we can do another one, which we did. But I mean, we signed up forward, we never ended up doing. But then so that's also a trend.
Not a trend, but yeah, people love not just first year anniversary. Sometimes people do renewal of vows. Sometimes people get together again at the 5th year anniversary or something like that. People love being captured that way. So ultimately, it's about capturing the moments of love between the two people. So at any point of time, that can be done.
Yeah, if it stays till that. What are your five trends when it comes to the wedding industry today?
Trends. That's a word I do not like.
Really? But there has to be some things which actually like fall in those places, right? Because generally there are things which usually photographers do, and that ideally becomes like those 4 or 5 things are the ones that start, I would say, trending in the industry.
I think a lot of daytime weddings are happening now because of the photographer's insistence, or people have been telling them that, at night it's a certain way because you don't really see the background. You're going to the mountains, you might as well see them. So a lot of daytime weddings are happening now. A lot of controlled guest list is happening now because people want only the closest people around them. So that is again very good for the photographers because everybody is equally involved, and no matter whose moment you capture, there are close people. Otherwise, in a crowd of thousands, you have to find those 100 people who are really close to the couple. It becomes more tricky. So a lot of that is happening even in big fat Indian weddings. It's the core people or the guests who are there involved and participating are limited. So that is very good. In terms of photography, what else is happening? A lot of new ideas, especially in video, a lot of new ideas are being tried out. The gear has really evolved. So there are no excuses anymore of missing a shot or it's something being out of focus or stuff like that. So everybody's technically really on point now, which I really love. I like to see the Indian wedding photography industry grow so much because everybody is now well equipped. They are technically strong. I'm seeing a lot more good photographs now than I did 4-5 years back. So in general, the quality of work has really improved. Everybody is really working hard to ensure that they're able to, because the client expectation has also grown equally. So the work overall, the body of work that Indian photographers are producing now, I'm really proud of that because everybody is really producing good quality work. And so all of that training and all of the workshops and everything, I just feel like it's all coming together because as an industry, we are growing, and I love that.
Right. What is it that you want to basically do? Like, I know, of course, that primarily shooting and primarily, of course, running your company is a very important thing to you. But apart from that, how is it that you would like to leave your mark when it comes to in photography? Because you talk about workshops and stuff like that a couple of times.
I like teaching. I like getting into that space. I like to interact with a lot of people who haven't made up their mind 100% yet of what they want to do, and I like to help them get some clarity in that situation. I like that part of it. I like to write, so I'm also working on something of my own that I'm writing, so I like that part of it also. Apart from being a photographer and running a business, I like spending time reading, writing, and spending time speaking with people about photography.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Ankita, for having this conversation. It was really interesting. I hope that the viewers find it very interesting in terms of like getting into the action of what actually happens in the wedding photography industry. So thanks a lot for coming in and speaking to us.
Really, it was my pleasure. You had some very, very interesting things to ask me and made me think also. So good.